Okay, so next is we're going to take and give you an idea of the agenda. Both, as you know, this district, I have a map here, is quite large. It goes all the way from Pacifica to parts of San Jose and down to Pescadero. So both Evan and Sam do have to leave kind of early, so we're going to go with the congressional candidate part first, and then we will go to club business and the city council debate, okay? And we did ask each city council person was all invited, okay? They were all invited with numerous emails. Myra Espinoza is not here, and this was the statement she sent me was, this was despite 4 email requests. Myra also did not send in a question, okay, to be asked of the congressional candidates. This is the statement she sent me. Thank you for the invitation, which I truly appreciate. Unfortunately, I have prior commitments that I cannot reschedule. I have a relative visiting, campaign-related tasks, and other obligations. Given my limited time, I want to concentrate on campaign activities where I can effectively leverage my skills and make the most impact. I appreciate the Pacifica Democrat Party's understanding, okay? Then we also, Michelle Murray, because of the constraint, the filing period ended last Friday, and she is an emergency room nurse, so she could not change her schedule to get here. However, Michelle said she was sending her wife, but I don't know if her wife is here or not, so I don't know what she looks like to be able to introduce her. Oh, and Sue DeGree, former city council member, just walked in. Okay, so I guess Michelle's wife's not here, but she did send in a question. Her statement is, due to the constrained time between filing deadline and the date of our meeting, Michelle was unable to change her work schedule. She works as an emergency room nurse, and given the specialty of her skills, was unable to find a replacement. Michelle did send in a question as requested here, and then I have the question. So the format is going to be, each city council candidate was asked to submit a question that they would like to ask the congressional candidate. Each congressional candidate, they're going to get 5 minutes to take and tell you about themselves, introduce themselves. And then I'm going to ask the question from each of the candidates, 3 of the 4 candidates for city council, and they'll each have 4 minutes to answer that, and then we'll open it up to cards, okay, and questions. So if you have a question for the congressional candidates, please put it on a card, send it to the end of the table, and they're going to be collated here by Marianne and Connie, just to be sure that, if there's 3 questions that are the same question, they'll consolidate them, all right? We also have our timekeeper for you 2 to see. Here's our timekeeper, and he's got there, okay? And he's going to put the sign up at 1 minute, that you have 1 minute left, right? 4 minutes, 1 minute ending time. All right, does everybody understand the rules? Both of you? Let's see, what do you need? What does Evan need? Okay, 2 minutes? 2 minutes? Okay. Well, Evan, yeah, okay, yeah. And another announcement is, Kevin from the hotel does give us this room at no charge, but he makes his money obviously on baby showers and weddings and stuff like that. We have to be out of here at 11:30, okay? So we need to clear the room at 11:30. And if you want to have a parking lot meeting, that's fine. You want to go to the bar and have a meeting, that's fine. You want to go on the greens, I would look for golf balls, but you can go out there too, all right? So we'll have this opening statement from each of the candidates. And I don't know, who went first the last forum? So, okay, so we'll let Evan go first and then Sam.
Good morning, Pacifica Democrats. just how electric the change is. Last month when I attended with each and every one of you, we were concerned about the direction of the country with Joe Biden as president and the presidential candidate. And now we are so excited with Kamala Harris becoming the next president of the United States. And you can feel the energy truly, and I'm so proud to be joined with you here as a fellow Democrat. And for those of you who I've had not the pleasure yet to meet, I am a proud Democrat. In fact, I served as president of the Silicon Valley LGBT Democratic Club and a past board member of the Silicon Valley Young Democrats, a little younger then. And also a past board member of the Silicon Valley Asian Pacific American Democratic Club and co-chair of the finance committee for the California State Democratic Party. So these values are all in me. And it's been such a privilege to join you last month, today, and also here in Pacifica during this period of time in which I had the privilege to join you in the beach cleanup with the Pacific Beach Coalition the day after 4th of July, which, by the way, looked like a war zone. But you can see the spirit of the community really gathering about the importance of our community. And I also joined during the opening of the Civic Center and seeing the incredible talents of our public employees and that of our new buildings, as well as making sure that I joined Mike at the Boys and Girls Club during bingo and had a chance to chat with individuals, and also at the Legion American Hall, hearing from residents and veterans during Memorial Day. I know that we'll have some time to be able to address this as well, but if you want to know who I am, think about who I fight for. I was elected as the youngest LGBT mayor in the country in the city of Campbell, and it's not just about tokenism, but during that period of time, my rights were eliminated in Proposition 8, which eliminated the rights of same-sex couples to marry, and I refuse to be legislative out of existence. There will be more time moving forward in the future, and I look forward to joining in this conversation about how we can advance our issues as Democrats. Thank you.
Okay, Sam Liccardo, candidate for 16th Congressional District.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. It's great to see that democracy is alive and well here in Pacifica. Thank you all for being here. This is wonderful. Thanks to the Pacifica Democrats, thanks to each one of you for taking time out of your busy lives to be here. It says much about our community here and about the future of our country because you are so invested. Thank you. And food has arrived. Thank you. And while we're at it, can we thank our hardworking team here at the restaurant? Thank you. Now we need to get government working like that. All right. So it's good to be back. We were here together in January, and since that time, I've had an opportunity to learn a lot from many of you. And I'm glad that we're back here now, and I want to thank Assemblymember Lowe for being here this time because it's important for all of us to be part of this conversation. I learned from you about much more than just the fun stuff in Pacifica. It's not just the iconic Taco Bell, and it's not just the dog surfing. I learned at doorsteps, hundreds of doorsteps, because I've been knocking on a lot of doors here, in living rooms, on walks with several of you, as I look at Sue and Tiger and others I've been on walks with, George, how families are struggling. They're struggling with high costs of housing here, with utility bills, how they're struggling every single day against the big challenges we face, like coastal erosion, the infrastructure challenges. I've learned a lot. And what I've learned more than anything is that what Pacifica needs is a partner and not a parent. Pacifica doesn't need top-down solutions like we might get from the state around builders' remedies. It needs a partner in the federal government who's going to be there to deliver, to enable Pacifica's needs to be effectuated. I want to be that partner with each one of you, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you so much.
Okay. I got to time that better. I got cantaloupe in my mouth here. Okay. So first question I'm going to give is from Michelle Murray, City Council candidate from District 1. And her question is, and we'll alternate. So since so many of the most pressing issues in Pacifica and the state of California are deeply intertwined, How will you ensure the California communities receive federal funding that includes allocations for infrastructure, economic development, and sustainability expansion? And the candidates were not given the questions before, so this is their off-the-cuff remarks. Tim?
3 minutes. Okay, wonderful. There's no question that the most needy part of our district in terms of infrastructure is right here on the coast side. And I'm hearing that every day. As I'm hearing about everything from power to challenges with roads to obviously what we're facing now along Beach Boulevard and the pier. There's going to need to be a lot of resources to support infrastructure in this community. You know, what's clear is that we need someone with experience who has gone to Washington, D.C. and delivered in many ways. And by that I mean, as the leader of the Big City Mayors Coalition here in the state of California for 2 years, I was the point person in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. That's why I was there at the Rose Garden signing ceremony for the Infrastructure Act at the invitation of President Biden. That's why I was there at the Rose Garden signing ceremony for the Inflation Reduction Act, two most important pieces of infrastructure legislation we've had in decades, and my phone keeps going off for some reason. I was there because I understood the importance of how to advocate for the needs of our communities. That's why they put me in that position, and that's why I was part of those efforts. And that's why I spent many hundreds of hours advocating in Washington, D.C. for transit funding for Caltrain and BART, for housing funding to help us get veterans off the street. I have a track record of doing so. What's it going to take at the federal level from our representative? And we've been well served certainly by Ann Eshoo as well as by Jackie Spear before her, and I'm grateful for their leadership. I'm also grateful that Jackie Spear has endorsed me in this race. I understand that what's needed is, first, we need to have the funding in place for the Army Corps of Engineers to do its job, to get the studies done, to enable us to be in position to get the funding we need. Yes, we need federal funding, but we also need federal partnership. We've got to get alignment because these projects take a long time to get through permitting. And many of you know, I was just talking to a gentleman who told me about his challenges. He's a salmon fisherman, and forgive me, I just forgot your name, but I know you live right up the ridge. You know, at the harbor, they've been trying to dredge that thing for 7 years. And you have to get through 8 separate permitting approvals from different agencies. And we need to find a way to get everybody into a room, and I know this because I've done it as the mayor of a large city, get everybody in the room at the same time. All these agencies saying, look, if we put the money in the middle of the table, can we all move together? How can we get the permitting done now rather than waiting to dredge the Pacific Harbor, or Princeton Harbor rather, for 7 years when we critically need to move that sand over to protect Highway 1 and Surfer Beach. It's those kinds of projects that are essential to move, and we have to move them quickly. And we need a federal partner to do that. And of course, can somebody please destroy my phone? I promise I'm going to turn this off. Finally, we need partnership that understands that it is going to be the community's will and not the federal government's will as to what gets built and where. I'm a strong environmentalist. I'm proud to be supported by the Sierra Club in this race, but we need to be pragmatic, and we need to hear from the community about what the community needs to protect against coastal erosion and address many of these great challenges. Thank you all.
All right. That was question 1. That was from council candidate Michelle Murray. And I want to encourage all of you, if you have a question that you want to ask the candidates, and both will get the question, please fill out a card, send it to the end. It's going to be collected and collated, and then after this, we'll get them. Next question is from City Council candidate Mark Hubble, District 4. His question is, my ask from the federal... Yeah, it's going to go... Did Evan in? Oh, I'm sorry. That was my fault. I thought Evan answered it, okay? I'm trying to scarf my breakfast. I'm sorry, Evan.
Honest mistake. Thank you very much. The question is about deliverables. I'm so proud to be in my 10th year, a decade of service in the California State Legislature, delivering directly for our residents. And in fact, on issues of deliverables, I have delivered. In fact, with our housing bond and delivering resources directly here to San Mateo County, over $500 million through a housing bond that I have supported in delivering resources directly to tackling that of the middle class and addressing the affordability issues. And of course, today, in this year, you will be voting on a Proposition 4 that I also helped put on this ballot, and delivering resources on a climate bond specifically to coastal resiliency, making sure that Pacifica is a beneficiary and receives billions of dollars of funding in the coast specifically to our communities. And that, of course, is from the 5th largest economy in the world, making sure that these resources come here back at home. But what I also want to share with you is this. There is a distinction in this race also between the two candidates. I come from a very small city. I was mayor of the city of Campbell. And in small cities, we oftentimes know what it's like in fighting the big cities and fighting for our fair share of the resources. And oftentimes, small communities get overlooked. But I have that experience in fighting to make sure that we get the results directly towards our communities. And we're talking about the environment as well. I also led an historic effort in Senate Bill 100, which is an amazing historic transition to get off of fossil fuel clean energy grid in the state of California. And that is going to be transformative in making sure that we protect our environment as well. And by the way, when California goes, so goes the nation. Those are the deliverables. But let's also talk about the realities. We are in a supermajority Democratic state, so it might be easier said than done at the federal level. But let me talk to you about bipartisanship, which is important, and also tell you a story about how I can deliver for results. I had a bill to lower the voting age to 17 and a half to allow our young people to be able to vote in elections as high school students, encouraging our next generation. But I wanted to get bipartisan support even if I didn't need it. So I went to a Republican colleague who lives in Santee, often known as Clan T, very conservative area. And I met with him to learn and break bread. And we went to Redneck Dive Bar. I don't drink. But we built bread and built those experiences. Fast forward, because of that allyship, when we were presenting the bill, the Republican said, no, this is a Democratic ploy to getting younger voters to vote. He puts up his mic and he said, I'm voting in support as a Republican to lower the voting age as a Republican because I'm a Vietnam veteran. And if you're old enough to die for your country at 17 and a half, you should be able to vote. I urge an I vote in the Senate. That is deliverable results that I will continue to demonstrate. Not only delivering results and resources to our communities, understanding a small town feel, but also results in an extraordinarily political dynamic environment. I am the only candidate endorsed by the California Democratic Party, and I look forward to the continued conversations ahead.
Thank you, Evan. And sorry about that misstep there. Okay, the next question will be from City Council candidate Mark Hubble, District 4. My ask from the federal government would be for funding to prevent wildfires in Pacifica and related losses in affordable home insurance. So Evan first this time. I won't forget Sam.
The question was about wildfire resiliency. And again, what have I done in this period of time? It is an American right in California. We deserve to live in our communities, to be insured, and to protect home ownership. We also need to recognize the realities also of climate change. And I referenced it earlier about the climate bond. This November, I hope you'll consider voting for Proposition 4, which helps to ensure that we get the resources in the communities of need. I also, in the state legislature, have helped support technology. And in fact, we are working in partnership at the state level and the national level with respect to technology and the National Oceanic Reserve to make sure that we're addressing climate change and also wildfires in real time, heat maps, utilizing drones, and that's funding directly that I have helped support getting local communities the resources that they need with our frontline responders. Now, when it comes to wildfires, we also must recognize the importance of firefighters who put themselves in the front lines and sacrificing of themselves. And so much of this also is about mutual aid, making sure that we're adequately funding and supporting our firefighters who are dedicated public servants. That's why I am endorsed as the only candidate by the International Firefighters, the individual that understands the importance of not just wildfire safety, but also making sure that we're tackling these real issues at hand. Because what we are seeing, of course, is the dismantling of public employees and workers. This is a systemic approach, by the way, a systemic approach of a surgical approach, I should say, of Republicans dismantling pensions, public employees as well. I'm endorsed by the California Labor Federation of Unions to reflect that of the working class and honoring and respecting individuals that dedicate themselves in this way. And when we're talking about public servants, that's what's also important. So again, funding, making sure at the federal level we're partnering in real efforts and bringing the resources back, and also understanding the people. Because at the end of the day, this is also about people. And we think about who I will fight for and who I care about. That is reflected in our values and making sure that that is of a top priority. I also fight for that of the middle class, the working class. That is a key core tenet of my platform and campaign, and making sure that they're delivering on these results. So again, when it comes time to all of these issues, deliverable results, what have I done, what will I do, and I already have the existing relationships, and of course the endorsement of Senator LaFonza Butler, acknowledging who we want in Congress to partner beyond partisanship and getting results as well.
I appreciate the question. This is so critically important. We know we've got a community here that's suffering at the high end from wildfire risk and the low end from sea level rise and coastal erosion. And it's fair to say this is ground zero for climate change and what we need to do in terms of adaptation. We've all seen this coming. We all saw it coming decades ago. Climate change isn't anything new. And as we look at the insurance crisis right now in this state, I think if you ask most residents who are struggling to pay rapidly rising insurance rates, if they're lucky enough to get insurance at all, they would probably tell you that the state has failed, and they'd be right. The state has failed. We all saw this coming, and we're seeing action now, sort of. When I say sort of, for those of you who can't get insurance for wildfires, you have access to what's called a FAIR plan, a very high cost plan. She'll pay for some things and not others. And by the way, if we have a record wildfire year or anything even remotely close to what we saw in 2018, the FAIR plan will be insolvent. That's not great planning. The state needs to do much more. The federal government can step up as well. And I believe, because I'm endorsed by the New Dems, the New Democrat Caucus, which is the largest caucus in the House of Representatives, I'll be able to work with my colleagues to get a package through that ensures that vulnerable communities like Pacifica, homeowners, apartment owners, small business owners, have the insurance they need. And we're not going to do it. We'd love to be able to say there's enough public money in the world to be able to protect everybody. We know there's not. We are all seeing deficits at all levels of government. We need to do more to bring the private sector in. What I proposed in a book that you can read online at samlicardo.com is a lot of specific ideas, very specific proposals, because I think you deserve to know what I'm going to vote for before you vote. You need much more than just broad pronouncements. You need specific ideas about problem solving, knowing exactly how I'm thinking. So I encourage you to read it. If you need to get to sleep one night, it'll put you right to bed. One of those proposals is around a federal savings resiliency plan to help homeowners, apartment owners, small business owners be able to reduce risk on their own properties with the benefit of federally backed financing that will reduce interest costs, and with what's known as PACE financing to be able to put that debt on the property so that they are not bound to it if they need to sell the property. What will this help us do? For example, in areas facing wildfire risk, well, it may enable someone to replace a wood shingle roof with composite. It may enable somebody to install sprinklers to reduce risk. The idea is we've got to reduce risk. Simply finding money for insurance for the inevitable disaster will not solve the problem. We need to be partnering with the private sector. and every property owner to reduce risk throughout our communities. Thank you very much.
Okay. So the next question is from, again, Greg Wright, City Council candidate, District 4. And his question is, how are they going to help the coast side adapt to sea level rise? What kind of funding and resources are they going to bring to bear to help us address this issue? I believe Sam first.
Thank you. I think we've both had lots to say about what we're going to do to try to hustle to get infrastructure money. And I appreciate and recognize all that is just promises right now. What I think we critically need to do, as I said in my opening, is to ensure we have a federal government that is a partner and not a parent. I know there's a lot of controversy about how exactly we're going to address coastal erosion and sea level rise here in Pacifica, just as there are communities up and down the coast. And yes, I'm an avid environmentalist. I'm proud to be supported by the Sierra Club and Bay Area 350 because of the strong positions I've taken on the environment and the leadership that we've shown in preserving open space and preserving hillsides against very powerful developers in 3 separate ballot measures. And I'll continue to do that. But we need to be pragmatic too. We've got communities, for example, those living along and near Beach Boulevard, near the pier, where we know we've had generations living there. I was talking to a woman 3 weeks ago who told me about how she got her home because her grandfather lived there. And her family treasures that home, just 2 blocks off of Beach Boulevard. And the idea of having lost the seawall, which I know is in peril over the next several years, losing that seawall and the protection to her neighborhood would be devastating, and certainly devastating to our entire community, because that pier and its surrounding community is a critical asset here in Pacifica. So we are going to need a combination of solutions. Some of them will be nature-based solutions, and some of them will include hardening and armoring as we critically need to protect neighborhoods. And we need to be working with the community, hearing clearly from the community about how we can best do it within our very limited resources. And so I vow to commit that I am going to do all the listening I can, but what's critical as I'm doing listening is that we encourage the community to come to consensus, which I know has been very elusive. We don't yet have a land use plan, of course, from the council, because there's been a lot of concern in the community, and I get it. And I'm not blaming the council, it's not their fault. We've got a tough problem, and it's going to take some time to get that land use plan out, and it's going to take time, obviously, to get it through the Coastal Commission. But we need to have a plan that comes from the community before we can get the funding at the federal level or the state level to be able to execute on that plan. And so my role will be as convener, not to tell you what you should do, but as a convener to encourage you to tell me what we should do. And I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The question is about sea level rise and also climate change, and specifically helping to support the local community and those resources. Again, what is the role of government, and especially at the federal level? We recognize the unique financial challenges of Pacifica, the operating versus the capital. Of course, operating has its unique challenges as well, but also capital projects, which are vast, that require state and federal engagement in getting the resources directly to the local communities and addressing these issues about helping to protect, preserve the integrity of our local community, and home ownership that is so valued, that is oftentimes the #1 resource for everyday individuals. So how do we best do that? I referenced it earlier about making sure that we're getting resources directly from the state. That is a deliverable, not just rhetoric, but also a deliverable, a high value in which I helped demonstrate the resources of over $500 million directly to San Mateo County. And also this climate bond to help ensure that we have climate resiliency in this period of time. Now, of course, addressing the issues of climate change is localized, but also widened, a broad perspective as well. And so in the state of California, you should be very proud, so proud to know that we also have passed laws and legislation to getting to addressing the issue of decarbonization. By 2035, all new vehicles sold in the state of California will be 100% zero emissions, 100%, and addressing the issue of climate change. And at the same time, the partnership that I have reflected already at the state level, there's a notion of technology and utilizing technologies here of offshore wind. And in fact, we've partnered with the National Bureau of Oceanic Energy and Management of 5 leases of ocean and federal waters and making sure that we are capturing offshore wind and addressing climate change. This is important for us to get to our historic goals as well of getting to fossil fuel and energy grid that is fossil fuel free by 2045. So when you think about this notion of also these proposals of the Green New Deal at the federal level, you should be proud as Californians to know we've already done the efforts in building that foundation in California. That's what I will bring at the federal level to help ensure we're building off of this engagement. And by the way, these are not just lofty goals. It requires us to build partnerships with the private sector. These are also labor and union jobs in addressing the issues and getting the resources directly to these communities as well. That's what I'm committed to. That's what I'll continue to do in Congress, and recognizing that this is a local approach, but also a national approach as well.
Okay, that concludes the questions from the city council candidates, since we didn't get one from Myra. So we're going to start going into the questions from the audience here, and if you have any more questions, please feel free to do a card, send it down, and they'll be collected. So the first one, I have to admit, is mine because I got the microphone, okay? The existing debt for the U.S. is about $35 trillion. There are estimates that by 2029, which is the lifespan of just about everybody in this room, is 2029, our federal debt will be 120% of our gross domestic product. How are you going to address the deficit, or do what you can, because realizing you are only one vote? And I think Evans first.
I heard someone ask what the question was. It's essentially about the national debt, the percentage of the national debt. My campaign is about addressing that of the middle class, that the burden should not be on the middle class. That is not an American value that I want to live in. That is not an America I want to live in. And as I committed to each and every one of you at the last meeting, what did I say? I said our goal is to help bring and identify young people to bring to this next meeting. I am fighting for the young faces here that understand the Californian American dream is no longer attainable as previous generations. And we're talking about debt. It is our young people that are going to be facing the challenges and the impacts of young people that we are passing the buck. Look, at the local level, we have to balance a budget. At the city of Campbell, we balanced our budget. We make sure that we increased revenues. And by the way, in that experience, we increased revenues with the support of the Chamber of Commerce, and also partnered with our labor unions in negotiating those benefits, finding a partnership in that approach. Similarly, the state of California, in my 10 years of the legislature, also under Jerry Brown, we've had historic investments in our rainy day fund. Historic, because you've also helped to vote to make sure that we stock away for a rainy day fund. Now, at the federal level, we're seeing out-of-hand spending on the backs of young people. That is why I'm in this race, to make sure that we're fighting for the middle class. I'm a millennial and understand the challenges of not being able to afford in this congressional district. In fact, when we talk about poverty, according to the Pacifica Resource Center, you know what poverty is qualifies under for residents here? $104,000 for a single individual, under $104,000, 6 figures. 6 figures qualifies you for low income in Pacifica. Now, that is not an America that I want to live in. That's not an America you want to live in. We are Democrats. We are better than this. And so addressing the deficit, we must reverse the tax cuts for the wealthy, because our focus is about the people, not the wealthy. I also believe that we're talking about Silicon Valley, that corporations should pay their fair share. That I have represented many corporations that pay zero in federal taxes. Zero in federal taxes. This is unacceptable. And so we need to make sure that corporations pay their fair share. And by the way, these corporations are beneficiaries of our public benefit. Community colleges, San Jose State University. I am a graduate of De Anza Community College and San Jose State. That is the #1 pipeline. According to LinkedIn, the top pipeline for public education and workforce, the top 10 come from that of San Jose State, are public institutions. So we are subsidizing these profits. And so that's what I want to leave with you. Ask that question. How will we look at an equitable society? Who will we fight for? When you close your eyes and you think to yourself, what is the experience and who do we fight for? This is very personal to me. That's why I'm in this. That's why you're all here. And that's who I will fight for, and making sure that we're tackling the middle class.
Go Spartans.
I'll take that too, since I taught at San Jose State. Great school. You know, when you're the mayor, you don't have the luxury of being able to point at some other party and say, we didn't balance our budget, it's their fault. When I was mayor of the city of San Jose, I came in to office inheriting a $3.5 billion unfunded liability that I had to do something about. And I sat down with 11 of our partners or unions around the table, and very difficult conversations, very painful conversations, to be sure. And we came to an agreement. We came to an agreement that they could support and I could support, that we could take to the voters to reduce the burden on taxpayers by about $3 billion over 20 years. And as a result of that, after having lost 1,000 employees before I came into office because of budget cuts and layoffs and hiring freezes, we were able to restore city positions. We were able to boost pay like we hadn't in decades. And I was able to hand my successor a $30 million surplus. That came through very difficult conversations that ultimately led to the support of all parties. We need to have more of those difficult conversations, certainly in Congress. You know, Assemblymember Lowe talked about great things that have been done at the state and how that there is I think he said, out of hand spending at the federal level. I didn't hear any proposals for cutting spending at the federal level. But I do know at the state, we had 2 consecutive years of more than $100 billion surpluses. Remember those times? That was cool. Yeah, last year, roughly $40 billion deficit. And here's the really bad news. We didn't have a recession last year. I would submit to you there's some out of control spending at the state as well that folks aren't taking responsibility for, because you usually have deficits during recessions. And we've had unemployment at 4% or lower, and we're seeing huge deficits at the state. Now, what am I going to do at the federal level? I'll be very specific. We have Social Security and Medicare that are imperiled right now due to become insolvent, and depending on your estimate, in 2031, 2034. We need to lift the payroll tax that currently only has people paying payroll tax up to $160,000. If you make more than $160,000, you should be paying payroll tax on that as well. Right? Secondly, we need to reverse many of the Trump tax cuts, most specifically, the enormous exemption that folks get on inherited wealth at $14 million, which is absurd. Third, we need to stop subsidizing industries. We believe in private markets here, free markets. Let's stop giving money to ethanol producers that actually produce something that's probably more harmful for our environment than gasoline is. Let's stop subsidizing oil production and gas production abroad to the tune of tens of billions of dollars in tax expenditures. And let's get the federal government working again. Thank you.
I gotta admit, I'm feeling like a hook. Okay, this question here, this is from the audience. What steps will you take to help reduce aircraft noise and pollution over our homes? And this is regarding the FAA. So I do forget who, Sam's turn? Okay, Sam first.
He had to ask an easy one. Who asked this question anyway? I knew it. Okay. So we actually had to grapple with this challenge ourselves. We've got an airport down in San Jose, and I remember having conversations with Anna Eshu about it. And she was rightfully standing up for her residents, saying, hey, we're all pretty concerned about what was going on in the southern part of her district. And what we learned ultimately was that the routes that were causing the most pain weren't actually at San Jose, they're at SFO. So I was happy to go blame San Francisco for it. What we need to do is to broaden the conversation, because from my experience of having those conversations, usually with an FAA staff member, and maybe even you get to the FAA administrator, and with local communities, usually the FAA just says, this is what we need to do for safety, and that's the end of the conversation. It doesn't go very far after that. We need to broaden the conversation. I think we need to get the carriers in the room, and I did that several times in the city of San Jose when we were trying to actually boost flights in some cases, in other cases get them to abide by a curfew. We are one of only three cities in the country that has a curfew on flights, so they cannot be taking off after 11 p.m. or before, I think it's 6:30 a.m. And we worked with the airlines and the FAA together, because the airlines want something too. They're concerned about fees, they're concerned about route priority, things like that. Let's bring them into the conversation so that we can have better outcomes than what we get typically when it's the FAA against the community. We need to ensure there's an opportunity here to talk about third ways. What we saw in San Jose, in my experience, was that we could get airlines to admit they would change routes, they would fly different routes if we put something in the middle for them. Usually it meant giving them priority on timing and gates and all the other things that they wanted. That's where conversations can lead to good outcomes, not pitting people against the government. Thank you.
The challenge exists in recognizing that there is significant disturbance, and how do we mitigate the efforts? And understanding that this is also a capitalist society and that these routes are dictated through the FAA and also geographic regions. So what we're seeing is all inner fighting within SFO and Oakland and San Jose. And so if you redirect elsewhere, they'll say they're going to go to other areas, and what you're going to see is local communities fighting and pitting against one another. And so that is absolutely right. The role of the federal government then, as a member of Congress, to be able to convene and have the oversight capacity and holding them accountable and getting the FAA to be here locally as well and listening to the concerns and making sure that these are actually implemented accordingly. Part of the challenge also has been such that many in the administration or the bureaucracy can outlast members in asking these questions, but we need the type of accountability. And that's why I am so excited about an opportunity to work and have the privilege to serve you. I'm 41 years old, excuse me. I want to be, I think in my mindset. See, maybe my mind is so, see the young people maybe feel this way too. But the longevity to making sure that we are holding them accountable and not a transition of administrations to pass the buck in this period of time. And that's why I'm proud to be able to help ensure accountability, utilizing the authority. And in fact, at the state legislature, we've had the audit authority, and I've audited and asked for specific results, whether it be the county registrar of voters, whether or not be it's other public agencies, and making sure that if there are inefficiencies, that we have the accountability and it's not passed around. So those are the efforts that I commit to be community-oriented and making sure that you know I will fight and making sure that there are results in addressing these issues of mitigation versus passing the buck.
Thank you. We did have a question regarding Social Security, so when we give them their ramp-up opportunities, I'll address it. Because Sam touched on Social Security, but Evan hasn't had that opportunity, so I'll mention that when they do the wrap up. And you both have to leave early, but 10:30 is the time you're leaving? Oh. Huh? Okay. Okay. Here's a direct question about the needs of an unincorporated area of the South Coast in Lomomar, Pescadero, La Honda, and San Gregorio. It's kind of an open-ended question, but they have a lot of the same issues as Pacifica: traffic, Highway 1, sea level rise, etc. And it was Vicky Skinner that mentioned this. Is there anything else you wanted to mention, real quick? Oh, okay. That's not our issue. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah. So. Okay, wrap it up, please. Okay, that's, okay. So who was next? Was Sam? I'm confused.
The issue that you're seeing some trends, making sure that communities don't get lost, and that we respect and acknowledge that of communities that need the support, especially in unincorporated, hard to serve areas, and building the infrastructure. And as we acknowledge, infrastructure is very expensive and difficult. But I've delivered specifically in recognizing that I come from a small city again, and know that we oftentimes have to fight for our fair share of resources. And the capacity I have helped make sure that we deliver for wildfire resiliency and also coastal resilience, bay restoration, and much of the funding. So much of it is about funding, but also the commitment of the person, the elected representative of who we fight for, and making sure that the underserved and the individuals that need help the most, not just the most vocal, but also those hard to reach served communities as well. That is also a commitment that is a unique challenge that I have the experience on, making sure that in the state of California and 58 counties, understanding their unique challenges. In my community, I don't have tribes, for example. California has over 100 recognized tribes in the state of California. These are oftentimes rural and underserved communities. At the national level, we have the same thing, and I've committed and I've met with tribal council members in their reservations and understanding that. So the capacity is here that we hear loud and clear, and especially in an unincorporated in San Mateo County. Both of us reside in Santa Clara County. So that what I hear each and every day is, how do we make sure that we do not get lost in the mix from the southern portion of San Mateo County? And that's what I commit to, but that's what I've also proven and shown in making sure that we're getting the resources directly to the communities as well.
Yeah, what the heck, I'll walk over here too. You know, Leon Panetta used to always tell a story at every campaign stop that I enjoyed and never got old. It was a story about a rabbi and a priest who'd go to a boxing match together. And they watched as the first fighter got up there, and right before the bell would ring, genuflected, made the sign of the cross, and the rabbi asked the priest, "Well, what's that mean?" And the priest said, "Not a damn thing if he can't fight. We got to fight." I know a little bit about fighting for communities that are underserved. When I was mayor of San Jose, we identified proactively with Stanford University, did a study to figure out who did not have internet service. You can guess who didn't have it. There are lowest income communities, overwhelmingly in East San Jose. So I fought and I hustled. We had big fights. I was on a national advisory committee on the FCC. I resigned out of protest, and because I didn't think they were moving fast enough. We had major fights with telecoms over this issue, and ultimately we delivered. We worked in partnership with the East Side Union High School District and delivered free broadband for more than 200,000 residents living in the lowest income communities in my city of San Jose. That is the kind of fighting we need to do together. I will take the good recommendation or the good example that has been set by Congresswoman Ann Eshoo and ensure that we have an office on Coast Side. We need to have, and certainly I know that's true for South Coast Side, where I've been hearing plenty as I've walked around in Pescadero, hey, we feel forgotten, we feel, not suggesting any slight against any elected officials, just we feel remote. And that means we've got to be there. We've got to be present. We need to be hearing it. If we're going to work with the community, we got to be with the community. But fundamentally, we've got to do this in a way that actually gets results. And I know it's easy for all of us when we're running for office to tell you all about all the stuff we're going to do and we're going to bring to you. It only works when you're clear with us about what you need. And I look forward to being a partner with you and to clearly identifying the needs in the community. I've heard loud and clear about roads, for example. I know if Highway 1 washes out at Surfers Beach, which folks are concerned about in the next storm or two, if we don't get sand there quickly to protect Highway 1, it's going to be a whole lot of the coast side that's going to be hurting, including South Coast. We need to do everything we can to work with all the permitting agencies to get these projects moving. And the way you do it at the federal level is you put a little money in the middle of the table and say, you can have it if we all move now, and you don't get it if we can't move. I intend to push. Thank you.
Let's see, Sam, you're next. All right, can you talk about money in politics, what needs to change at the state and federal level, and what are you doing in your own campaign as special interests come to you? Are there any groups you do not take money from? And then there's a big circle, dark money in politics.
Thank you. I think this issue, as we talk about defending democratic institutions, I've got lots of details in my plan about we're going to stand up for voting rights, we're going to stand up for reproductive rights. We got to do all of that. But I think the most impactful thing we could do in this next Congress is to get a constitutional amendment through Congress that overturns Citizens United. And the problem isn't just Citizens United. It goes back to Buckley versus Vallejo and Supreme Court decisions that were made in the 1970s. The basic problem is the nexus that the courts have drawn between free speech and money. And we've got to break that nexus. And we need a clear constitutional amendment that says money is not speech. I am committed to doing all I can to either introduce it or support it if somebody else is introducing it, and I will fight for that. All that being said, it's very clear, it's been very public. I have been the recipient of, or not recipient, I have been the beneficiary of funding that has been spent by outside groups in what's called super PACs. So has my opponent. I think he got a little more than I did, but that's the way it goes. And everyone will pick apart, who gave what money. I got some money from in a super PAC. I wouldn't say, again, it wasn't me. It was a super PAC because I'm not allowed to even talk to folks about it. This is what I read about when it's all public months later. I guess it was a CEO of a tech company, and Mike Bloomberg gave money to one super PAC for me. PG&E gave $325,000 to my opponent's super PAC, along with the landlords group. The California Apartment Association gave another $250,000 or so to my opponent's super PAC. So you can see who's out there, right? And why are they doing it? We need to know who's doing that before the election, not after. If we can't overturn Citizens United, at the very least, there needs to be a 24-hour disclosure rule that says when PG&E contributes to my opponent's super PAC, that voters know. So voters understand why PG&E is getting behind one candidate and opposing another. You deserve to know that as voters. I have already articulated publicly I will support a 24-hour notification requirement because I know that's going to be easier to get over the goal line than a constitutional amendment, since we've only had 27 of them in the history of this country. I think 27. I might have the number off by one. Anyway, we've got to work together for greater transparency until we're able to get a constitutional amendment in place. And by the way, it wouldn't be a bad thing also to get some term limits in for the Supreme Court so we can get a better court next time too. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't answer one part of the question, which was I'm not taking any money from oil and gas. I'm not taking any money from tobacco. We've got a list of it on our website, but there's plenty of groups we're not taking money from. Thank you.
The question is about the impact on money in politics. I have authored legislation in the state capitol on banning corporate contributions because of the proliferation of money in politics. And it's important for transparency about who funds candidates and campaigns. And if you look at those who contribute to my campaign and who I'm supported by, I'm the only candidate endorsed by the California Democratic Party. And part of the Democratic Party principles, if individuals understand what it means to be a Democrat and active in the party, there's something called a party platform, which addresses and tackles that of money in politics and getting money out of politics. My campaign is also fueled by firefighters, healthcare workers, plumbers, nurses, pilots, that of union labor, and recognizing that we have that of workers who support our campaigns. My opponent talked about the reference of super PACs, and of course this was a historic election in which an out-of-state billionaire in which my opponent co-chaired his presidential campaign, funded the recount to disrupt that of an election with that of myself and Supervisor Joe Simitian. And in real time, I, as a result of that, introduced legislation on automatic recounts and real-time disclosures and making sure that this does not happen again. To rectify this issue and making sure that money does not play and that gamesmanship does not exist. That is an important imperative. And when we're talking about Citizens United, especially for our young people, is that of money is speech, that corporations have speech. And again, ask this key question of the two candidates. Who does the party support? Who does organized labor support? I'm endorsed by the Congressional Progressive Caucus because of my commitment and joining in these efforts in ending Citizens United, making sure that we have ethics reform for the Supreme Court, term limits for the Supreme Court, and understanding the balance of powers that exist. Answering the question who I don't take money from, I also have received an F- from the NRA. And I said it before, that's the F- that my parents, my Asian parents, are proud of. And making sure that that does not exist. Making sure that we have the integrity and the safeguards, but also to be truthful and authentic with you too, which is money plays a role in politics. While at the same time, you'll hear that I'm outraised and I'm the underdog, 2-1, that my opponent's super PAC, associated super PAC, is funded by a crypto billionaire, by Michael Bloomberg. I am that of the people, and that exists. But you'll hear lots of the back and forth. But what's important is to be truthful and authentic and be able to articulate these values, which is what I'm committed to doing. Don't just believe me. Think about that of why the Democratic Party supports me, organized labor, working people, and making sure that we have integrity in our electoral process. And finally, let me just say this. I was also the chair of the Elections Committee. When you plug a hole in the bucket, the water leaks from another bucket. So it's imperative that we are tackling the issue at hand, which is the Supreme Court.
Okay. So we reached the point of closing statements because both candidates' campaigns indicated that they had to leave early for another thing. And just so to keep you in your seat, after this, we're going to have the city council candidate forum and we have several questions for city council candidates, okay? So we're going to have the closing statements and just kind of the step in regards to Social Security that was a question, but Sam touched on, Evan did not, was lost. Basically eliminating the cap of Social Security is something you should do, okay? So who went first for opening statements? Okay, so we'll have Sam for closing statements, and I think we should give a hand to both of them. Okay. Having been in the arena several times running for office, it's a challenge, a commitment, etc. And I want to thank both of them for coming to the forum today and opening themselves up to the questions. So Sam first and then Evan, but they both did indicate they were going to leave, so they're not being rude. They have other commitments, okay? Hold on.
Thank you. Thank you again to the Pacifica Democrats. Thank you to each one of you for taking time out of your weekend to be here. As I mentioned, I've been learning a lot from Pacifica residents in the last few months. I'm thinking about a woman named Rosa in Edgemar. I knocked on her door and she told me about the incredible challenges she's having paying rent and paying for childcare, and how it's forcing her family to make very, very tough choices. We need our federal government to be making tough choices so our communities don't have to. Rosa and the rest of our community deserve a leader who will take action and get something done in Congress. You deserve accountability and you deserve action. As mayor of the city of San Jose, I'm proud of what we did in our 8 years. In my final year in office in 2022, we reduced street homelessness by 11% because of a quick build housing initiative that we launched to get thousands of people off the street. We were able to make San Jose the city with the lowest homicide rate of any big city in the United States because we were able to add police and gang prevention programs. We were able to deliver a $30 million surplus to my successor. We were able to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 36% because we took on PG&E to provide a public option that ultimately provides electricity that's 8% cheaper to our 1 million residents and is 95% GHG free. We got these results working together with the community and by focusing on solutions. Now, there have been a lot of folks in your community that I'm grateful have stepped up to support me. Sue Beckmeyer, thank you. Your Mayor Pro Tem. Sue Vaterhaus, your mayor. Your supervisor, Ray Mueller. Your former member of Congress, Jackie Spear. They're all good Democrats too, last I checked. And by the way, also the New Dems, the largest caucus in the Democratic Party, and the Bold Dems, which is the Hispanic Congressional Caucus, also endorsed me. I'm going to fight for you just like I fought for my residents in San Jose, and I look forward to working with you to get something done.
Okay. Evan Lowe, Congressional candidate.
Thank you, fellow Democrats, for allowing me an opportunity. It would be a privilege to serve each and every one of you. I also wanted to thank Mr. Liccardo, his family, and the staff, because this is a difficult journey of public service, but we're doing this because we care, because we are passionate, because we are patriotic about our country. I know that's why you are here as well, to hold us accountable and delivering for our community here in Pacifica. Again, I have the privilege of serving as 10 years in the California State Legislature as mayor for the city of Campbell. And what drives me, as I referenced to earlier, that I refuse to be legislative out of existence. We've seen over 500 pieces of anti-LGBTQ legislative proposals across this country. Don't say gay, banning of books. And it's not just me as an individual. Reproductive rights, and I co-authored legislation to enshrine reproductive freedom in the state of California, fighting and bringing back the fight to Donald Trump. These are national issues that require our engagement, but also localized. I talked to you already about delivering very specifically resources and much needed infrastructure projects, acknowledging climate change. And this is not just climate change, this is a climate crisis, and it needs the type of addressing that we have, especially for our young people. That is what my campaign is about field. And I'm so excited to be the California Democratic Party endorsed candidate along with our future president, Kamala Harris, and making sure that we reflect California's values across this country, not just rhetoric, but I've done it. I have done it. And on localized issues, this is about economic justice, public safety. I come from a family of law enforcement, understanding that these issues are real. Tackling these issues of hate crimes, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism. I've authored legislation on tackling hate crimes because this is not just rhetoric, it's a lived experience. And I just want to leave you with this one question to ask yourself and leave you. I have been the most prolific lawmaker in the state capitol, named out of 120 legislators. How will I be out of 435? It would be a privilege to serve each and every one of you.
Okay. So, as I stated, they both have commitments to their district that stretches from here all the way down to San Jose and Pescadero. So they're going to be leaving, and now we're going to be getting the city council portion of the forum. Okay, each of them will be given 3 minutes to give a personal introduction on their background, what they're doing, what their goals are. Okay, so Mark first, and then Greg for 3 minutes each. And the timekeeper's over there.
Okay, so managed retreat.
No, introduction.
Oh,
Candidate
okay.
introduction.
All right, okay, I'm Mark Hubble. I've lived here for 37 years. I live in the District 4, back of the valley. And I've been involved with, the city politics as often as I can be. And, I really love Pacifica, and that's why I decided to run.
Okay, give it to Greg.
Hello, my name is Greg Wright. For those of you who don't know you, I too am running for District 4 City Council. I kind of thought of this walking into here as a big giant job interview, and you all are the hiring committee. And so I figured I should start by telling you a little bit about me and what it is, what experience it is that I bring to the table on how I can be most effective in helping represent your needs. I started in my life of service with a lot of very simple things. Started coaching recreational soccer. I started coaching my daughter's basketball team. Very successful in basketball, by the way, but it wasn't long before I wasn't allowed to do that anymore as a parent. So from there, I moved on to refereeing. Refereeing taught me judgment. It also made me a fair arbiter of a lot of situations. From there, I became a referee mentor. I had the opportunity to educate particularly some Pacifica youth on how to become referees. The coaching taught me leadership. That is something that I bring to the table. I also have worked on a couple of nonprofit boards, over a decade of service on both. Locally, I've been on Pacifica United Soccer Board. I'm the longest serving member on the board. I primarily have been dealing with the fields there in order to make sure that our youth have an opportunity to have extracurricular activities. I think this is extremely important. I know how influential it was to my daughter and raising her here. In addition to that, I've served on a nonprofit school board for the German School of San Francisco for over 10 years. I helped shepherd both of these nonprofits through the crisis of COVID. They both survived, and frankly, they both came out the other side stronger than we went in. That's a major accomplishment. Lastly, I've been on the Planning Commission. That taught me to grasp a huge amount of information and come to good decisions. It also has allowed me to build relationships and understand a little bit more about how the city works. I want to bring all that experience to bear and show you what it is that I can do for you. I invite you all to come see me in action on Monday night at the Quarry. Should be a packed room just like this.
Okay, managed retreat concerns regarding an unconstitutional taking under the Fifth Amendment. Well, I'm not a legal person. I don't understand that one quite, but I've been to every single meeting on this issue, going back, I don't know, 4 or 5 years probably. I haven't missed one. I haven't missed any of the office meetings or any of those. And, you know, it's a really tough situation. I mean, no other way to put it, it's a really tough situation. But when I look at it from an analytical point of view, I don't see where we've ever had hired independent geologists or shoreline experts or any of those things, you know, to give us any sort of definitive answers. And you know, we use this company that does the design work, and they give us, you know, their expertise, but they have a financial, you know, stake in that game. And I think one thing that would really make a huge difference if we did hire professional geologists to come here, shoreline geologists, and let us know, you know, how much is the sea going to rise, how far up is it going to go, at what date, you know? We just don't have that, and that's terrible. So, anyways, that's my opinion.
Thank you, Mark. As far as managed retreat goes, we have a big issue out there. It's sitting right out there. You can see it from here. It's coming. And we have a huge problem over there at the Clarendon Gap. We have flooding that's going on. We have overtopping on Beach Boulevard. We need to have a plan. If we don't have a plan, it's a disaster. Is managed retreat the absolute best plan there is to deal with this situation and address it? Not necessarily. Does it mean that we can't improve on it? Absolutely, we can improve on it. But having no plan is worse. I'm a big advocate for the seawall project. I do think the cost of not doing the seawall project to buy us time to have more opportunities to implement natural adaptive strategies. We need to protect our infrastructure over there. Not doing something like that will actually in the end up costing us a lot more money than if we do address that. We need to partner with people like the two gentlemen that were just here and try to bring in some revenue to address these issues from the federal government. We need to be able to bring in some money and revenue from the state in order to address these things. I look forward to forwarding those relationships and try to build those relationships in order to get some help here that we so desperately need. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to acknowledge Peter Tulowski for the Tribune, and Half of a Review just walked in, okay? And believe it or not, we don't have a lot of questions here for the city council candidates. So is there anybody who would raise, yeah, I know, but I'm, okay, all right. This one, I don't know how appropriate it is for the city council people, but what would you do to protect and promote our LGBTQ community and trans youth? So, Greg, you went first last time.
I absolutely do think that we need to support and protect our LGBT youth. My wife and I are godparents to a plastic surgeon's son who does a lot of transitional surgeries. I'm a big proponent of these kind of issues and have an intimate understanding and concern about these kind of things. I'm not an expert by any means, but I'm certainly not against it. And I would do anything I could do to support on a local level, in addition to, once again, partnering with our other local Bay Area governments. Thank you.
My answer would be that in the United States, we have a constitution that guarantees that all citizens are equal under the law. And I think we just need to enforce that people should not be, put out or how would I say, kept from doing things, because we do have that in the Constitution, and I'm a firm believer in our Constitution. Thank you.
Okay, what steps, this is also asked of the congressional candidates, what steps will you take to help reduce aircraft noise and pollution over our homes? Mark?
Well, I think we have a committee that's doing a really good job of that. I see good reports. To be honest with you, I don't know the answer to that question. They know the answer to that question. They've been working on it for a long time, and I guess they have been negotiating with the airport, and I thought that some of that was being successful. So, I think that's the best answer I can give you. That.
This is a tough one. I get woken up every morning. I'm kept up every night by the noise. There's a lot of things I would really like to do, but none of them are legal. I have appreciated the way that Christine Bowles has worked at this, and I acknowledge you for it, and I appreciate it. I too like to tilt at windmills, and I was really glad to hear that question asked of our candidates, and I look forward to working with whichever one prevails to work on this issue. I love the idea of bringing everybody into a room, working together to try to address this issue, not just this issue, but any issue. And in fact, regardless of who wins here, I would like to offer to work with him on whatever area of concern it is, whether I win or lose. I would love to work together for the better of Pacifica. That's why we're all here.
Just to take and clear the air, I was given the question development of the quarry, but given the fact Greg is a city member of the Planning Commission and will have to make a vote, I think on Monday is decision day, isn't it? Or is it just on the agenda for discussion? I don't know. But anyhow, out of respect for... Right, but it's not, he can't really talk about it because he's going to have to do a vote. Okay. Oh, thank you. Can you please share? Oh, actually, that already got that from Remy. Can you please share your vision and plan to help stabilize the economic future of Pacifica? So, right now, first.
Give me 1 second here. I am very concerned about our 23% underfunded government running. I'm concerned about the future of Pacifica from a financial perspective. I do bring some experience to bear on working on both those nonprofit boards. Is it on this kind of level? No way. Do I look forward to that challenge? Absolutely. I think there are a number of ways that I've also demonstrated experience. I have a record working on the general plan. I have a record working on the Sharp Park specific plan in order to address bringing in both more property tax and more sales tax with the rejuvenation of our downtown. I've worked on the housing element, and we've located a number of sites on that where we have an opportunity to do additional mixed-use development, where we can bring in additionally, once again, more property tax, more choice for Pacificans in terms of bringing in more businesses, more options for restaurants, more stores, more services for what we want. But all that not only generates more sales tax revenue, but it gives us an opportunity for our visitors serving commercial spaces to bring in some more job opportunities for us here. It also gives us an opportunity to get some of those tourist sales tax dollars here. I am very much in favor of raising our TOT tax here from 12% to 15% to help try to address that. Like has been stated a number of times, Half Moon Bay has over 20 hotels. We have less than 10. That generates a lot of revenue. No wonder they have more money to do the projects we all care about down there than we do here. So we need to be smart about how we go ahead and do this. I've been doing this work on the Planning Commission, trying to do the best I can to support making Pacifica an economically viable place both now and into the future. Why shop over the hill? We should be able to do it right here.
Well, this happens to be one of my favorite subjects. Going back about 10 years, we worked on a really great group worked on this thing called the Pacifica Ocean Discovery Center. And the purpose, what makes that important, not so much the aquariums or whatever, but it gives Pacifica a destination. We need to be that, something that is generational and not just squeaking by all the time. When, if we do, say, have 40 whatever trucks rolling down the hill every day, every weekday, people aren't going to come here. And if those trucks are rolling down here for, say, the next 5 or 6 years, which is what they're claiming, that's going to leave everybody, like in Daly City, wherever visitors can come from, a very bad impression of Pacifica. Nobody's going to want to come here, and so anyways, that's one of the things. We need just a real identity, and nobody's worked on that identity. And so I think if I was elected, that would be my top priority, would be to establish that. So, thank you.
Okay, so Mark will go first for this one. Is plan to fix the traffic on Highway 1.
Well, let's see here. The plan to fix the traffic on Highway 1. Well, I mean, I think some things are really tough. I'm not for widening it. I am for doing better with transportation. I think we really, really need to have transportation, good electrically powered transportation that goes over to the the Sam Car and the train station, so that people can go up and down. You know, I commuted from Burlingame, where I worked for almost 30 years, to here, and I mean, I experienced the worst of it all the time. But I don't know what the good example was. I mean, remember times where there was accidents, you know, in the hillside right by the quarry, and the roads were closed for 8 hours or something like that. And we have to, I think, start with those kinds of problems. And then as far as, the other ones, I mean, because if there were more opportunities for working here in Pacifica, we would be better off, but there aren't that many. So everybody, or the vast majority of people that are working, still have to commute, and that's what the major problem is right there. So whatever we could do to build a future here, I think would be the best way to solve that problem. Thanks.
As I'm sure many of you are aware, we have an F grade on Route 1. It's horrible. It's a challenge for all of us to deal with. I do think that we need to work on some cooperation, interagency cooperation. We need to speak with the Metropolitan Transit Commission. We need to work with the Association of Area Governments, City and County Association of Governments, SamTrans. We need to build relationships with Caltrans and improve that and get all these people together to try to address this issue. Get some expertise. I don't have those relationships as of yet, but my predecessor does, and I look forward to being able to lean on him and fellow city council members on how do we best address this together, because after all, just because we live in District 4, which doesn't touch Route 1, it doesn't mean that we don't represent everyone here in the room, regardless of what district you live in, and this is a problem for all of us, and it does need our attention. Thank you very much.
And this is a two-part question, but I'm going to ask them one at a time. What is your history in protecting our natural resources? Greg?
Well, let's see. I guess the Planning Commission counts a little bit. Let's talk about just something as simple as trees. Lately, you may have heard me at a few commission meetings talking about trying to make sure that we keep protections for the replacement trees when a heritage tree is removed. Also keeping a registry of where these things are so that 5 years later we don't run into this same kind of issue. And I'm sorry, but that's about all I have to say for right now. I can't really talk too much about too much of my work on the commission, but that's where my experience comes from.
So as long as I've lived here, I've been very active in protecting our resources. Let me start at where we are now. We have two programs. One of them is we go on what we call our Sea Star Safaris, which is to go out to the tide pools and check on the populations, the health of the populations of sea stars and tide pool, life out there. And we work with the San Francisco State University. And that was a program that I started pretty much, and me and this one guy over here, Jim. But that's really important. Just say, for now, let's say, what do we think about the quarry? Well, the quarry's going to take 40 truckloads, I guess, a day of untreated soil that could come from anywhere, and dump it in the quarry where it will roll down, still untested, into the creek. The creek runs out. We've already done testing as to where the creek, where things wash out and end up over in that area, and they end up right where the tide pools are. So if you really want to kill a bunch of stuff, go for the quarry. Develop the quarry. The other program that I worked on, and I was one of the people that started, is the is the steelhead population, the migrating steelhead population in migrating steelhead population in the San Pedro Creek. And so we've really been doing a lot of work there to enhance that migration. And, you know, with that population, we've been doing that for 3 years now. And we're sponsored, you know, by the California Fish and Wildlife, NOAA, and the County Resource Board. So, and I was the one that instrumental in starting that program as well. So I think I have done a really good record of working on the environment here, because again, I believe that our environment is what will bring people here to spend money or to create, you know, opportunities for employment.
Second part of the question, what are your thoughts on ways to bring ecotourism to Pacifica?
All right. Well, that was bringing ecotourism to Pacifica was the whole point in the Pacifica Ocean Discovery Center. And we did a lot of work. That went on for a long time, a lot of different people. And our goal was to put it over into the old sewage plant, right? But I'm kind of glad that didn't happen, because we want this thing to last long. But we had a lot of experts helping us with this. And, you know, I look at it like this. When I grew up, you know, you're in second grade, you take the big yellow buses and you go to the museum, you know, in the city, right? Third grade, you know, you go to science and industry. Next, you go to natural history. Then you go to this one. Then you go to this one. Those were field trips, and that's where we learned. And that's what I call a generational approach to this. If we do a learning center or a cultural center, any of those kinds of things here, I'd like to see them in the quarry myself, then we would have people coming here. We would have a positive brand in the minds of young people that that Pacifica is a good place, and it would be a place that they could learn. And I think they'll bring their kids and, you know, families, and that goes on and on and on in many cities in this country. So I think that would be my best answer for that question.
Our single biggest asset sitting right out there. Beaches draw more tourism dollars than almost any other asset anywhere. I don't know if any of you have young children, if you've ever gone to any of those soccer tournaments up in Roseville or Davis or Sacramento in the summer. I had my daughter's cleats melt in Visalia. Climate change can actually, in a small way, almost be our friend by having it be so hot that all those people out there want to come here where it's nice and cool. Well, how do we support that? We support that through good policies, good planning, doing things like building hotels, having a smart short-term rental ordinance that actually serves the people of Pacifica as well as the outside community. When it comes down to the quarry, I feel like you need to know that I have a legal responsibility not to prejudge things, and I need to adhere to that duty. I take that responsibility very, very seriously. But I can tell you that I invite you to please review some of our previous meetings on this issue so you can have a better inkling of what some of my concerns and what my public position is on these issues. And I really do invite you all to come out on Monday. It would be great to see you all there. Thank you.
Okay, so this is the last prepared question we have, and then they'll each have 3 minutes to say a goodbye song. And then we do have to leave the room by 11:30 because they have another event after this. And if you want to have a parking lot meeting or golf league meeting or whatever, feel free to do that, okay? Also want to acknowledge probably one of the busiest people in the city right now is our city clerk, Sarah Coffey, because all these candidates all these candidates go through her and file all the paperwork, and election time is very busy because she still has her duties, agendizing minutes and everything else for city council meetings and everything else. So last question we have is, how will you protect hillsides from inappropriate development? And I think it's Greg's turn to go first, I think.
Well, we certainly do have a nice set of rules here and a lot of protections. Part of the reason that I moved here is because of our 50-50 ratio of outside space, all our scenic beauty. I'm blessed. I get to live on the top of a hill. I get to look out and I get to see all that beauty every single day. That's part of what made me fall in love with Pacifica. I think each and every one of us here care a great deal about that. I spend an inordinate amount of time, or at least I did before I needed a knee replacement, hiking on those trails. To this day, my wife still does. These are really important issues, and I think you can see through my work on the Planning Commission that we have identified sites with this state mandate, with the RENA numbers, on how it is that we were best trying to come up with the best locations for development that would be more appropriate. And I think that I can demonstrate through my experience and my record and my voting record on these kind of issues exactly how we can try as a city to steer development in a smart, Pacifica-serving way.
Well, I think that we have rules on that, and I think that the Planning Commission or whatever should follow those rules. And I think that, that's been the history of Pacifica for as long as I could, lived here. I mean, I've been involved in the speaking up at the various kinds of meetings, the commission meetings and all that, about those things. And you look at the, just somebody took me out one time, a long time ago, and we were looking at the hillsides and that are preserved, and that was preserved from Daly City building all those little ticky-tack houses there. And somebody said, now this one was signed off by, the protections here were signed off by President whatever. This one, Jimmy Carter, whatever. All the way along those hillsides have been protected. And I think that we can continue to do that. We should continue to do that. And it nestles, it connects to the questions that have been coming up. How do we get more people to visit Pacifica? We have to protect those things if we want a tourism economy. And I don't think we have a choice between what economy we want. We're here in the ocean, we're separated from everybody. We need to have a tourism economy if we're going to be successful, period.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming today. I really appreciate it. It's given us an opportunity to be able to say what we're for, and I'm glad that you've had that opportunity. I have been transitioning, just to tell you a little bit more about me, from more and more of an active income role to more and more of a volunteer or service-oriented role, and this is the next step. The job that I'm applying for is asking for the next step in that transition. I want to bring all that experience and judgment to bear to keep this community, the community that I fell in love with, that you fell in love with. I raised my daughter here. We started by riding horses here in the back of the valley. I miss Matt and April owning that ranch. I miss those times. My daughter got to attend surf camp here. She got to teach at surf camp here. I mean, growing up here is a very special way of life. She got to play soccer here. I just hope that somehow together we can all work to make sure that here is a place that she can afford to live and can afford to raise a family. And I look forward to working towards that goal. This is where we bought our first house. First house. Apartment living before that. First house here. This is where we laid down roots. This is where we wanted to live forever. I love the hiking and the natural beauty. The whale show has been incredible. I mean, you want to talk about bringing in tourism dollars? Whale TV. Now, because of all these benefits, I owe a debt. I owe Pacifica. I am so thankful for the opportunity that I have had here, and I want to continue to be able to pay that debt. There's a number of issues that I'd like to address once I'm on City Council. I'm very much in favor of a new community center. I see I have 1 minute left. I will speed it up. I'm looking forward to being solution-oriented to address the traffic problems. Maintaining and improving our streets is another big issue that I'm sure we're all familiar with. I want to protect our environment, the air, water, and yes, that includes our soil. I want to embrace the economic development challenge and develop relationships in order to be able to keep Pacifica, the Pacifica I fell in love with. Thank you very much for your time today. See you all Monday.
So, Mark, did you want to do your goodbye song?
One of the things, I've been going door to door up in the back of the Valley area, District 4, and I am really, really concerned about something, and this is a life or death issue, I think. So, pardon me if I looking at my notes, but thank you, Mike, for the opportunity to speak up. Okay, so thank you, Mike, for the opportunity to speak up on this issue. So my name is Mark Hubble. 37 years I've lived in the back of the Valley. I bought my home there in '87. Thanks to the California Voting Rights Act also for forcing Pacifica to transition from at-large to district-based elections. I think that's a really, really big change. It's necessary, and because I can't even remember having representation back there before that happened. So I'm taking advantage of that. I am a future thinker, but one must understand the past to build a better future. 254 years ago, Fray Juan Crespi, Crespi all over the roads, right? He was a journalist that traveled with Portola and described the first sightings of the back of the valley. There was hundreds of controlled fires by the natives back there to burn the underbrush off, right? And save their people. And that went on for probably thousands of years. Okay, so now while the news warns us that each day, week, month, and year, we are breaking temperature records, many decades later, the thick brown, highly combustible underbrush that we see back there accumulates beneath the bright red poison oak. It's clearly visible on the hillsides. In spite of what you may have heard, there have been wildfires in BOV, and a couple of them were pretty, scary. One in particular in the 1980s was large enough to require extinguishment by large aircraft, spraying that red stuff down. And it also created a temperature inversion, which many people became ill. And so everybody either stayed home, went somewhere, or something for that. Okay, I've been hospitalized for breathing smoke from burning poison oak. There's nothing worse. Fortunately, I was young, so I survived. Most residents of BOV are not young. Would they survive? 2 years ago, our city, Pacifica, submitted to the San Mateo County Hazard Survey. The chance of wildfires in Pacifica are less than the threat of dams breaking. Pacifica has no dams. Citizens are losing insurance. Will their homes be next? We must do better.
Okay. Did you want to shake hands? Be civil here, please. Okay, so I'm kind of considering that like the wrap up from both of you, unless you feel. Oh, okay, all right, good, Mark. Thank you. So anyhow, I'd like to thank everybody for coming to the meeting, and I want to thank everybody because we will be out of here by 11:30.